Hi there, I'm Epstein, and I'm a PhD student at the MIT Media Lab. Today, I'm going to talk about social influence and how it can lead to the rapid formation of diverse local trends. This is joint work with Matt Groh, Dubey, and Sandy Pentland. This work starts with the question, how does the visual design of platforms impact user behavior and the resulting environment? One influential study on this question is Salganik et al.'s 2006 science paper, informally called the Music Lab experiment. On a music streaming site, they randomly assigned people to worlds, each of which evolved independently of the others. Some of the worlds had social influence, where users could see what songs other people in those worlds downloaded, and others were independent and had no social information. This design allowed them to look at the causal effect of social influence on the environment. They found that social influence increases the inequality of success of songs as measured by the Gini coefficient. This means that there are a few hit songs that dominated the rest. They also found that social influence increased the unpredictability of success as measured by the variation in popularity across worlds. The Music Lab called to attention what is at stake when designing social influence into platforms, but it remains unclear how to apply its conclusions to the design of modern social media platforms. For one, the original paper did not specify any mechanism or model to explain how social influence operates. Moreover, it is unclear how the findings in the context of music translate to other forms of media, such as images. To explore these questions, we show a conceptual replication of the original Music Lab study in a context that is fundamentally different from music, the in silico evolution of AI-generated hybrid animals, which we call Ganimals. Ganimals are generated by interpolating between animals with big GAN. The golden fufa you see here is made by blending a golden retriever and a goldfish. There are hundreds of thousands of possible Ganimals. Since Ganimals are uniformly novel, both because of the novelty of GAN technologies in general, and also this vast possibility space of potential hybrid animals, here we can study social influence, excluding the potential confounding factor of familiarity. We developed Meet the Ganimals, an online platform where users could generate and curate their own Ganimals. In the Discover Them page, users could generate new Ganimals by interpolating animal labels in BigGAN and blending existing Ganimals. In the Name Them page, they could name and save their favorites. The main experiment took place in the Feed Them page, which was essentially a popularity contest where people could browse Ganimals others have named. Users could also annotate the morphological features of the Ganimals in a morphology quiz, which allowed us to characterize the kind of Ganimals that were popular in each world. We worked with a professional zoologist to assemble 10 morphological traits that could characterize the variability in possible Ganimals. These features include if the Ganimal has a head, eyes, a mouth, nose, legs, if it's bigger than a house cat, lives underwater, has feathers, has scales, or has hair. Here are the average traits of 4 exemplary Ganimals. We also used climate fiction narrative storytelling, cli-fi for short, to transport users to a new reality. This world takes place in a future drowned Seattle, where protagonist Tara Darwin discovers lost creatures inside her floating underwater pod. Let's hear from Tara.
Actually, listen, that's why I'm sending this. I got so bored that I went for a dive in my family's archives, and I stumbled across my great-grandma's old circle. Anyway, I found something.
Thanks, Tara. The platform went viral and had over 10,000 visitors. In the end, 10,657 users generated over 44,000 Ganimals, bred over 8,000 Ganimals, and named over 700 Ganimals. In the Feed Them page, over 2,000 votes were placed on 434 Ganimals by 549 users. We embedded a randomized experiment on the platform which varied the social cues of popularity and the visual layout. The layout was either a newsfeed-like list users scrolled through, or a layout that spatially distributed all the Ganimals in a single cloud. Users were randomly assigned to one of the 16 worlds each of which had a local ecology that evolved independent of the others. We successfully replicated the results of the Music Lab experiment, which found that social influence leads to the increased inequality of success. It led to a winner-take-all market where a few Ganimals dominated the rest. We also found that social influence increased the unpredictability of which Ganimals would become popular. Worlds with social influence exhibited significantly more unpredictability than worlds where participants made independent decisions, but found no effect on the cloud layout. When restricting only to list view worlds, we found a significant association between social influence and unpredictability. This suggests a stronger association between social influence and unpredictability in the list view, where instead of browsing all Ganimals at the same time, users relied more on social signals when scrolling the feed. The annotated morphological features of the Ganimals allowed us to quantify the kinds of worlds that evolved. Here, for each of the 16 worlds, we plot the average morphological features of all Ganimals in that world embedded in the 2D plane. The lines correspond to orthonormal projections of each of these 10 traits. We see that the majority of worlds were centered around Ganimals with eyes, a nose, a head, and live above ground. These traits fit standard conventions of animal beauty and are kind of reminiscent of dogs. However, several worlds, all of which have social influence signals, diverged from the status quo and were centered around underwater Ganimals without eyes, nose, or a head. Overall, we find that social influence led to increased divergence as measured by the difference between the 2D points. These results suggest that there's dramatic variation in morphology across worlds, but how does that compare to the variation in morphology within worlds? To answer that question, we calculate and compare the morphological diversities of each world. We do so by fitting a multivariate Gaussian with covariance sigma j to each of the morphologies of Ganimals in each world and computing the entropy of that distribution. We find that worlds with social influence were more diverse than worlds where participants made independent decisions. So to wrap things up, we replicated the Music Lab and found that social influence increases inequality and predictability of popularity. But using GAN-generated imagery and measuring covariates for them allows us to go one step further and ask, what kind of unpredictability? Our results suggest that without social influence, many worlds converge to a singular set of Ganimal features. This status quo contained features that conform with morphological conventions of quality, like Ganimals with eyes, a head, and dog-like features. Social influence, however, led to the rapid evolution of local cultures that dramatically diverged from the status quo and that were ultimately more diverse. Many studies interpret the unpredictability that social influence induces as a negative externality that can lead the herd astray and undermine wisdom of the crowds. Yet, we found that this unpredictability corresponded to exploring novel areas of the possibility space and led to more diverse and divergent local cultures. One important implication of this is thinking through conservation efforts for ugly animals. We live in a world where charismatic megafauna, animals that play into more conventional, evolutionary, and developmental preferences, like the giant panda, absorb the lion's share of conservation funds. We found that social influence boosted the appeal of AI-generated creepy crawlies, like the surface ray, relative to their charismatic cousins, like the golden fufa. This suggests that social influence could be a key tool to invigorate attention and conservation of ugly animals that need our help, like the lemur. If you want to learn more, feel free to follow up or check out our website, the Ganimals short film, or our Instagram filters. Thanks for listening and see you in GAN space.